Good morning, Bermuda, and welcome back for another Bermuda Youth Connect constituency interview. My name is Teray Tull, and I'm joined by Ajay Peets. And today we're talking to two very, very popular candidates who are running in constituency 30, Southampton East Central. Again, the purpose of these interviews is just for Bermuda and the constituents in the constituency to get to know the people running in that constituency. So we're going to start with introductions. So without further ado, for 90 seconds, Dwayne Robinson is going to introduce himself.
Hi, good afternoon to Bermuda and to Bermuda Youth Connect and the listening audience of Burn News and to the constituents of C30. First things first, I'd like to say how much younger we look in our in our photos than we do in person after all this work we're done. But yes, I have been the confirmed candidate for C30 for about 2 years now. I am a senator, former senator, father, husband, and resident within the constituency. So I have enjoyed, being able to connect with neighbors, being able to connect with people in the area. I have a background in hospitality, but I am currently working as an immigration specialist at a prestigious law firm. And I have enjoyed learning and kind of working my way around policy and legislation. So I look forward to the conversation today, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Mischa?
Good morning, people of Bermuda and residents of Southampton East Central, Constituency 30. My name is Mischa Fubler, and I'm the PLP candidate for the neighborhood. As far as background, I'm Bermudian born, public school educated. I have a bachelor's degree in urban studies, which is kind of city planning and sociology combination, learning about how to design sustainable cities, the importance of good infrastructure like roads and transit. I also have a master's degree in information systems, which is kind of a combination of computer science and IT management for enterprise. Professionally, I've worked as a community organizer and a computer science teacher from first grade through high school level. I currently am the assistant vice president of applications and management information for a local reinsurer. And I've been a member of the Progressive Labor Party since about 2020. In that time, I've served as the chief technology officer on the executive. You might also remember me from the by-election in Smith South, where I ran against Ben Smith in 2023. And I am right out of time. Thanks.
You're good. So I want to start with something for both of you, because everyone that I've spoken to is quite disappointed that you both are running in the same constituency. It seems like Bermuda wants to have both of you guys in the house. So tell us why you're running in constituency 30. Dwayne, we'll start with you.
So first things for me, constituency 30 was always the dream constituency for me, because I believe in running like where you are, because it's not any easier for you to be available for constituents, but it just gives you a bit more skin in the game. So I've always been attempting to be there, but as you know, my predecessor, whom I love very dearly, she was Leah Scott, who was in this seat from 2012 to 2020. And so I basically was an approved candidate for the OBA, and I ended up being placed in C28 to give the voters there a choice, to give them an option. And I believe in that democratic process. But, I always wanted to run 110% no matter where I was. And I was very blessed to get the experience and still connect to those folks in C28. But, Southampton is where I want to raise my family. Southampton is where we live. And so I wanted to represent that area and always have.
Mischa, how about you? Why C30?
Sure. So echoing the sentiments of Dwayne around living where you represent, I feel similarly. However, I do live in constituency 28, and the Progressive Labor Party is very much a grassroots organization. So the membership of the branches decide who they'll put forward as a candidate in the elections. And as such, the constituency closest to home at the time that we were kind of doing the musical chairs of who will go where was constituency 30, and recognizing the opportunity of being, less than 5 minutes from home, I jumped at it because I'm pretty passionate about the environment. I know you've seen some of my interviews previously, and so there's significant green space and kind of the ongoing redevelopment of Southampton Princess, and I thought I'd be able to provide some effective advocacy in that space here in Southampton.
You're right. It does have a lot of green space. Over to you, Aj.
So, Dwayne, what are the top 3 concerns you've heard on the doorstep, and what is your plan to address these concerns if you're elected?
So one of the there's a few things I'll say locally. We have a big issue in front of Waterlot when it comes to the drainage there, and I have already kind of sent an email to Works and Engineering regarding that, and I'm looking at ways to do it privately. But I don't know if you recall, but it floods pretty severely right there in front of Waterlot. So that's one of the big things that many residents obviously have to do, like go through when they're coming home. There's also a lot of issues with the tribe road maintenance, the roads, obviously number one. But our tribe roads in Southampton, the residents take a huge pride in that, and it hasn't been as maintained as it should be. So obviously national issues would be healthcare, education, cost of living, things that I think everybody is hearing on the doorstep nationally. But I definitely, if elected, not only will continue, because I feel like I have a track record of being a big advocate and a clear voice for these issues already nationally and locally. So I will just be able to amplify my voice as an MP and continue to be that advocate and person they can come to.
Thank you so much for that. And now handing it over to Mischa, same question for you. What are your top 3 concerns you've heard on the doorstep, and what is your plan to address these concerns if elected?
Right, so we're canvassing the same people, so similar concerns at the national level. Probably number 1 is roads and lighting. To be fair, you're on the doorstep, it's evenings and weekends, so folks are in the middle of dinner or dealing with their family, and often it's difficult for them to, on the spot come up with what's their most pressing concern. But when I prompt them around, if there's one thing you could fix tomorrow, what would it be? Roads and lighting is often raised. Also, road safety. So when I came in, there were concerns around safety mirrors that used to be in place that may have blown away in the storm or were damaged. So I made an effort to replace those. I placed one down at the entrance to Riviera Road. And now that I've been in the Senate since it was like November, I use some of that salary to purchase safety mirrors each month so that I can get them installed in other places that have been raised. Cost of living is probably second. And so I've been keen to advocate for the expansion of cooperative businesses. I feel that if the employees and customers of a business are the owners, there'll be kind of less of that desire to maximize profit, right? It's your friends and family who you're selling to. You want it to be fair and equitable. And third, senior concern and healthcare kind of wrapped together, which is why I'm keen to see us implement the universal healthcare.
Yeah, thank you for that, Mischa. Dwayne, the OBA released their platform a while back. Is there anything specifically in that platform that you are looking forward to actioning if you are elected?
For me, I definitely want to see the multi-purpose the multi-purpose entertainment venue and conference center. I believe that our creatives and those who are creating their own platform, I think that would benefit a lot of people because number one, tourism is key to, aiding local entrepreneurs and creatives in providing a consumer base for people to be able to sell their wares and all of those different things. I'm very passionate about that and providing spaces for creatives to be able to not only perform, but hopefully perfect their craft. So I'm really passionate about that. And I'm hoping to see that come into fruition because not only was tourism an avenue for me growing up as like my first job to be able to learn how to not only provide for myself, but work very hard and be an ambassador for Bermuda. I feel as though that opportunity should be made available wider for more young people. So I think that revitalizing tourism and also providing space for the creatives is one of my passion projects. So that's why I'm really, really, really excited about that particular pledge we've made.
Yeah, I know a lot of young people listening are very happy to hear that. Mischa, back to you. The PLP just released a 40-page platform. Is there anything specifically in that platform that you would be excited about actioning if you're elected?
Well, I mean, all of it, right? Some of it's look pretty great stuff. I'm one of the members of the Research and Platform Committee, so I had direct involvement in the formation of it and the kind of canvassing the membership and candidates for their input and feedback. Just touching on the culture piece there, I think it's great that we're going to look to kind of enshrine the security of our cultural icons like the Gumbes, the kudos to your organization for the advocacy around absentee balloting. I think I'm looking forward to seeing that, hopefully through leveraging technology. Like during your campaign, I did some research around what absentee balloting looks like in other jurisdictions. And so I have my doubts around the feasibility of doing it through the mail. But I think as we continue on the digital transformation of government, we'll be able to implement that electronically so that students have the ability to engage in the electoral process. Also, I am keen to see the reopening of Southampton Princess, right? It's a significant economic driver in the neighborhood, directly impacting the lives of Southampton Princess residents. And just to touch on the drainage, one of the things I wanted to advocate for is for GenCom to be a good corporate partner and help us with implementing, they're called biocatchment drainage, doing some research into options for mitigating the flooding, because that's something that comes up regularly as a local issue in constituency 30. You can dig ditches with special layers of sediment and other materials so that you can filter out the fuel and oil and the like. So, sometimes folks say, well, just let it drain into the ocean, and that's a quick fix, but that's probably not the right choice.
Right. Dwayne, this is not your first general election, but this is an election unprecedented in many ways. What are the lessons that you've taken so far?
I think that one of the lessons I learned in the last election was how important it is to focus in locally. A lot of times when we're politicians and we're on the doorstep, we hear a lot of national issues, and it kind of makes us look through the lens of how do I tackle these huge issues like cost of living, healthcare, and tourism. And a lot of times, elections are won on the doorstep, right? And I would say that one of the benefits I have this time is that I've been in the constituency for quite some time, 2 years. So it's like returning to folks who I've spoken to before versus in C28, where it was a snap election in 2020, and I only had 2 weeks to canvass. So it's been a huge advantage to return to people and say, hey, how have you been? And they're just like, hey, we're seeing you 2-3 times. Obviously, the struggle is you will never really be able to cover and get every single person on your first 1 or 2 rounds. So my hope is to try to reach every door and reach every person. But I have learned that locally and the local issues are really what Bermudians vote on when it comes to the general election, because the wider net is obviously what your party stands for nationally. But at the end of the day, they're voting for a representative for them, right? And they know that I've been an advocate and I've been getting the railway trails cut myself at times, speaking on behalf of them when it came to the STO officially, when they had their objections to it, various things such as the Horseshoe Bay concession and various concerns that they've had in the community. So I believe that focusing in locally and then being able to amplify your message nationally and prove to them that you are capable of handling national issues, but also local issues, and being accessible and available is really what I've learned.
Yeah, thank you for that. Mischa, back to you. Earlier in the conversation, you talked about how Bermuda was introduced to you in a by-election. So this is your first general election. What lessons have you taken from that by-election to this one?
Sure. Lessons from the by-election is, that's a good question. Don't back down in the face of unfavorable odds, right? In Smith South, before I put my name forward, I looked at the election returns, and you can see about 3 out of the 4 voters in Smith South have voted the other way for as long as the data is available on the registrar's website. But I know that there's still 25 to 30% of the voters who have supported the PLP. And do want to see different representation there. And so I go head on into getting out and building relationships with the neighborhood, not just with the voters, but with the businesses. Dwayne touched on an important point there that kind of highlights the difference in how we would represent the constituency. When I saw that there was concern around how Horseshoe Bay Live was conducting the business, I reached out to the business directly to get a feel for kind of both sides of the equation. And I think that advocating for the revocation of a license is probably not the best way to build relationships with businesses in the neighborhood that employ residents there. It's important to ensure that we are protecting both of those parties in the kind of relationships in Southampton East Central.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely got it.
Just
I want
really
to.
quickly.
Would you like to
Sorry.
respond to me?
Yeah,
Mischa?
I just
Yeah, you can
wanted
respond.
to be sure that the constituents of C30 and those listening are not misled unintentionally. There was no advocacy for the revoking of anyone's license. There was an advocacy for folks to be able to uphold and maintain their side of their responsibilities to the constituents. And at the end of the day, the constituents come first in any equation. So we have to be careful not to, take things out of context. And I've clarified that a few times.
Mischa, do you want to respond?
No, that's fine.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about, I think, something that a lot of people are thinking. Mischa and Dwayne are running in the same constituency. I'd like you both to tell us why you were best represented to serve constituency 30. Dwayne, since we just heard from you, we'll start with Mischa first.
Sure. So even outside of Southampton East Central, when you look at the slate of 109 candidates out there, I don't think there are any with kind of the unique set of experience and skill set that I possess. I've lived in several major metropolitan areas, Toronto, Bangkok, New York. I have education experience, so I have a lot of time explaining complex concepts to people who are kind of early on in their understanding of that. I also day-to-day am tasked with leading a team to analyze complex processes and devise novel solutions that leverage technology. And I think bringing that to the legislature is valuable for both the people of constituency 30 and Bermuda at large.
Dwayne?
I think that track record is what, is going to carry the day here. And I have been a vocal, strong, clear, and concise voice on behalf of Bermuda since I entered the arena years ago. And for the constituents of C30, they know that I have been contactable if they have local issues, if they're in need of groceries, if they're in need of their trash picked up, any cleanups, I've been there. And I'm not one to really make a point of showcasing what I've done for my constituents in that area. But what I will say is that I bring a history of being a strong voice. I also bring a history of being in the Senate and being able to articulate and know legislation and know law. I also bring a hospitality background, means I know how to deal with people. I know how that tourism business works. I also have been able to move into corporate and get that side of things, and understand that on a people position, that I am able to advocate not just for those who are of uneducated backgrounds, but for those who also have educated backgrounds, right? And I think that is something that folks are looking for in the House. They're looking for somebody that is consistent all year round, that is visible all year round, that has a history of being visible, being on the right side of the people. And I think that at the end of the day, that is what's going to carry the day.
All right. Well, Mischa, I would like to give you an opportunity to speak real quick. Can you tell us about the experience of canvassing in C30 thus far? And most people don't really know what it takes, so can you tell us about it?
Sure. So I mentioned I ran in Smith South, and so the experience in C30 has been much different. I think it's a better experience. People are a lot more open to discussion. The Town Hill in Smith South is a huge hill. There are many hills in Southampton and Tilly as well, but there's a lot less of the steepness. So just the physicality of it. Since the election's been called, every evening and on the weekends. I'm out in the neighborhood knocking on doors. One of the challenges is logistics, right? There are many people who feel very strongly about not voting for someone who hasn't shown up on their doorstep. But, I finally made contact with a gentleman, and he said, "No, it's good to finally see you. I haven't been here." And luckily, I keep pretty good notes. And I say, "Well, I was here in November, and I left a flyer." And he said, "Oh, you're right, I did. Maybe someone else brought in the flyer." And so I think sometimes people are unfairly characterized as not having canvas when maybe, the "sorry I missed you" card blew away in the wind, or someone else in the house took it in and they might not be a fan of that person and trashed it. And so now the whole family thinks that my representative or my candidate hasn't come by. That's it. Time's up.
Yeah, I get that. And I also, Mischa, I'll have to agree with you. I think C30 is just a better constituency, period, in my in my very unbiased opinion.
Right.
Dwayne, opportunity to answer the same question. Tell us about canvassing in C30.
Well, I will say canvassing the C30 is interesting because of the fact that it's a spread out constituency. So you have a lot of big roads to go up, but it's also a lot of tucked off neighborhoods that open up into these pretty wide and spacious areas. So some constituencies are a bit more compact, and so when it comes to C30, you really have to kind of get your sneakers on and sometimes go from lane to lane because it's very spread out. So our constituents are not really located in one very condensed area. So it's a very, long constituency to canvass. And I will agree that, unfortunately, you knock on a door if somebody works at night. If somebody's working shift work, you may miss them, and you may have been there 2 or 3 times and you may not catch that person. But I think the diligence of returning multiple times, and in my opinion, the key to being a really effective area rep is just to try to make yourself contactable in many different ways. You can use the emails, you can use social media, you can do a knock. But the main thing is that can they reach out and contact you if they need to? They may not always see you because of their schedule, or you might have missed them, or you may only have spoken to their parents and they weren't home. But as long as you're able to be visible and they can say, "Hey, I can send you a Twitter, a DM, or Facebook, or email, or whatever," I think that will help. But canvassing is always a hard slog because, not only are you going up and down, but you have to deal with whatever mood or whatever is on the other side of the door. And you never know when it's a good time to come. So I think both me and Mischa have done a good job of making appointments available for people to pre-register, because obviously, you're not going to do it. Sometimes somebody is in a position where they're like, "Why are you here right now?" So it's like, well, I have to be, because we only have 6 weeks to really give you a chance to speak to us face to face. But it is my favorite thing to do in politics. I think it keeps us grounded to the issues and also to the residents of the folks in the area.
Yeah, well, Dwayne, I have to agree with you and Mischa, because you definitely need walking shoes if you're going to Southampton East Central. We have an audience question that I'd like both of you to answer. Taj Danu Onderbridge says both candidates are known to be quite progressive and vocal. So I'm wondering why they chose to represent their parties respectively. Why not as independents, where they can truly represent their constituents? Give us a case for why you're running as a part of the PLP and the OBA. Mischa, you're up first.
Sure. And so prior to kind of entering the political space, I was already fairly involved with Social Justice Bermuda, being one of the founding members. Got family background in social advocacy and education through folks like Glenn Fubler, my uncle. And I surveyed the landscape, so to speak, and looking at what the parties had done, as well as independents' kind of success or lack thereof in elections. And then also thinking through the logistics of legislating. I want to have more effect than just fancy speeches or potentially putting forward private members' bills that may or may not be effective depending on the feeling of the current government. And so then I went to assess kind of who the parties were by reading through the constitutions that they had and attending events. And so I went to a youth outreach event back in 2020, or maybe a year prior for the OBA one. And just the experience between the two kind of led me to investigating the PLP more. I then became a member of my local branch and saw that there was opportunity for being able to affect change within the organization. And kind of, before I run out of time, the mission and vision of the PLP really speaks to kind of who I am as a person, and I'm keen to see them kind of live up to those. And that the mission is that the party will strive for the attainment of social, racial, and economic justice for all, based on the will of the people and democratic principles, in order to promote a sovereign nation that ensures equity and puts Bermudians first. And the vision is a diverse and inclusive party committed to cultural and economic empowerment while addressing the needs of an evolving Bermuda. And that kind of like sums up what I'm trying to bring to the legislature. And just, at the PLP Youth Outreach event, the MPs were more willing to engage with me. I spoke actually to my opponent in the Smith South election. And as soon as I kind of pressed back on one of the typical talking points of the OBA, he kind of ended the conversation. And I said, well, maybe this is not for me.
Yeah. Also, Mischa, you're good for time. So if you'd like to continue, you can.
My experience is when it goes to the four square, I should wrap it up. And so I'd be happy to expand in some cases. Yeah, I mean, when you look at folks who may have been, like Taj asked the question, he was a former member of the party, heavily involved. And I understand his reasons for stepping away. But I also felt that by my involvement, I can demonstrate to the wider public that there is appetite for people who feel and think the way that I do within the party. It's democratically run, grassroots. So with the people in the room, we can implement what we want. And so any of you who may have been former members or who are on the fence, I welcome you to reach out and we can get you looped into the activity.
Thank you for that. Dwayne?
I just have a bit of a pushback when it comes to the assertion that to be an independent candidate means that you can truly represent your constituency. The reason why I chose to join a party is because when you look at the Westminster system we're in, and I know a lot of us young people don't necessarily agree with Westminster, me being one, the current system that we're in actually in the House doesn't recognize parties, right? You are the representative of the area you are elected in. But the issue is obviously you need like-minded individuals because there is a majority rule system. That's democracy. And the main thing for me was that the One Bermuda Alliance aligned a lot with the values I have when it came to creating opportunities for people to be, self-sufficient, to chart their own course in business, to chart their own course in education. It's really a party that wants to empower locals to be able to do and provide clothes, house, and feed themselves. And that was something that I really felt was strong also in our tenants' integrity, fiscal responsibility, which the island is sorely lacking right now. And it's something that I am really passionate about, not only to create a space where government is able to really support its people and not focus on $130 million interest payments. It's something that was really passionate for me, but also that social key I felt was missing in the iteration that I joined. And I wanted to bring that. And I have seen since then, a lot of new members have come in and provided that social side of things for us to be able to focus on those issues as well, and not just, business, fiscal responsibility. There's a social responsibility aspect in the OBA now that I really connect with. But at the same time, it really comes down to being able to ensure that you're joining a group that is going to help you pass policy that you believe in. At the end of the day, the independents will have to find like-minded independents or a like-minded party or a like-minded group that is going to help them pass legislation in the House. Otherwise, you're one vote to 36, right? So I have no problems with, independents being in the election. I think there is never an issue with more democracy and more choice, for the constituents. But I think that realistically, when you get to the House, there is going to be a majority rule situation. And, I am comfortable and confident to stand with the OBA on its platform, on its principles, and to advocate for the policies that align with me. And, I feel like at the end of the day, it's an integrity thing. Are you really going to represent your constituents? I can say wholeheartedly that I would as an elected representative. My party knows full well that they do not monopolize my vote. They have to speak it through caucus. We have to talk through it. We have to agree on it, and we go from there. So I think it's an integrity issue, not necessarily whether you're a party or an independent.
All right, we have another incoming audience question. I can't launch it. There we go. There are several young Bermudians currently awaiting trial while the issue of their legal representation remains unresolved due to restrictions under the Legal Aid Act. Do the candidates support amending the act to allow defendants in serious criminal trials to have access to overseas King's Counsel when necessary? If not, how do you propose to ensure that all Bermudians, regardless of financial means, have fair and effective legal representation in complex cases? I guess, Mischa, can you answer that first?
Sure. Might help to bring the question back up. But to start, the judiciary is very much outside of my wheelhouse. So I'm not a subject matter expert in this space. In general, I support equity in legal cases. I need to know more about why it needs to be King's Counsel for the representation. I do know that the members of Social Justice Bermuda that formed the kind of legal justice components of the platform we put out in 2020, I can confer with them around kind of what would be the best approach here. But yeah, in general, I support the sentiment of supporting people through fair representation in trials. I've seen some of the advocacy that this guy's been doing, and I very much supported the example he gave around the expense for kind of a police misconduct trial versus everyday Bermudians who don't have access to that same representation feels unfair.
What are your thoughts, Dwayne?
I support being able to allow people to have equal representation despite their background or income. I will say as well to declare that I am not an expert on legal matters, but I have definitely seen and read through the proposal that this particular young man has put forward, and I think that it is well written and well thought through. For me to be able to endorse it or speak to it about knowing the ins and outs, I wouldn't do that only because I would rather be sure about the reason why it needs to be, a King's Counsel and various things. But what I will say is I do support a call made recently for, private firms and other law firms who are practicing to do a bit more pro bono work, right? I mean, make yourselves a bit more available to folks who may not be able to support your fees but are really in need. And I think that that's a great and quick way to make sure that, we can get that legal representation. But as far as legislative change and things like that, with policy, I would always want to be sure that there are no unintended consequences or any reason why we should or should not do so. I think that's the benefit of debating these things in the House. But at the same time, I don't see any issue with the principle and the preference that someone should have equal representation in court to, deliberate on whatever they're going through. So on the basic principle of it, we definitely agree. On the face of it, obviously, I wouldn't want to give legal advice without the proper qualifications in that field. But yeah, on the principle, absolutely agree.
Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come onto our show and to speak to your constituents. We strongly encourage all eligible voters to participate in the electoral process on February 18th. We would like to give each of you just a minute to speak directly to your constituents on why you would be the best option to represent them. I would like to start with Mischa, and then Dwayne, you can give your final thoughts as well.
Sure. Thanks. First and foremost, Teray, Ajay, thanks so much for making the platform available. Really appreciate it. To the people of Southampton East Central, I encourage you to reach out if you are interested in having a chat. Mischa.Fubler@plp.bm. Get you scheduled for a time where I can stop by, or a phone call, whatever works for you. Also, just on that previous question, I got some information coming in that legal aid reform is in the platform. So, we're going to be looking at that if successful in retaining the government, also removing financial barriers associated with obtaining domestic violence protection. And after that plug kind of into why you should select me for your representative in the legislature, we've kind of touched on my background and experience and what I can bring to the political dialogue of Bermuda. I think I present a unique opportunity to select someone with both social justice and technical ability and experience, and that leads with empathy and emotional intelligence, some things that I've received professional training on in my time as technical lead at a number of local businesses. And, it's 11 days left, 10 days left now. I look forward to meeting more of you on the doorstep. And also second Saturday of the month is when I do my surgeries at the clinics. I think today I'll sit off at Heron Bay. After this, I'm going to go get my flagpole, and I'll be there for an hour, maybe two, depending on how busy it is, before I get back out into the hills of Southampton to meet you on your doorsteps. Thanks.
Dwayne?
Thank you. So I think for us here in Bermuda, we have the opportunity to send a message that we reward consistency, advocacy that is year round. I think for me, I bring the authenticity of being somebody who comes from the grassroots, who is worked his way up from nowhere to somewhere, and I really have a passion for speaking on behalf of my constituents and on behalf of Bermuda. I bring my specialized knowledge in not only hospitality, but also in immigration that I am currently training in. There is a need, I believe, for that particular issue to be tackled when it comes to Bermuda, as we have an unsustainable working population. We have a demographic issue and aging population. So it needs to be a person and an advocate that has the skill set to navigate that, and also understands that the necessary need to protect residents and Bermudians is paramount as well. There is a background, obviously, for myself when it comes from being public school educated, similar to my opponent, who is also a City Bridge, alum. So, City Bridge is winning right now. But, this is something that I think is very important, and this election is pivotal. We have global and overseas things that are going to be impacting Bermudians, and we really need representatives that not only have the empathy, but also have the ability to scrutinize legislation. I have a track record with policy and legislation, being a former senator, and in the opposition, you have no CS, you have no permanent secretary. You have to do the research, the speeches, all of that on your own. So it has given me the skill set to not only research policy, but understand it and dismantle it, and also be sure to protect the interests of my constituents. Not only that, but I am your neighbor. So I live in the constituency. So, you can reach out to me very quickly. I am available. I am around 24/7, except for when I'm at work. So not quite 24/7. But I want to say thank you all for this opportunity to speak to not only the constituents, but Bermuda. And as you can see, we both got our shirts on. So I'll be going out right after this to continue to canvass. And I'm sure it'll be pedal to the metal straight through February 18th. Your vote matters. Your voice matters. And as you can see, you have examples of young people willing to step up. So I hope that young and old take this opportunity to make their voices heard in this election.
Before we go to closing, Aj, I just want to say, as a voter in C30, I've heard really great things about both of you, which I think for the people who live in my house, it's a tough job to get compliments. So I really do wish you both the best on February 18th.
I appreciate the endorsement.
Thank you so much.
Whole family.
We would like to thank all of you for joining us, those who have tuned in, and also to our guests. We wish you the best of luck on the 18th. We will be going live with the candidates of C28 at 11 o'clock, so stay tuned. Thank you so much and have a great day, everyone.